Hello there friends and welcome for today's Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader Guide. We have at long last an updated colony management guide. Mastering colony management is very important because a lot of the best, unique and quite missable rewards, including items and permanent passives, can only be found through here. So let us dive right into it, first with the basic mechanics behind colony management. First, you can access the Colony Management tab from anywhere in the world map by going to the tab here or pressing Y. And Colony Management is all about doing projects. Each colony has its own set of unique projects, some of which are mutually exclusive, so it's very important to pay attention whenever a project will block another. Thankfully, the game itself will always tell you this. For example, if you pick Camp Princess here, we cannot pick any of the other first tier projects. Every colony has pretty much the same amount of projects based on each tier, from 1 to 5. And as far as mutually exclusive projects, it's mostly about any of the first, also third, and then 5th tier projects. You can only pick one for each of these ranks. What about the other ones? Well, as far as the second rank, the only mutually exclusive ones that matter are at the bottom here, so the two last ones. For example, Capella Biologis and also Dark Sages. Also, this is very important as far as the second and third rank projects, because for the third rank project, they aren't just mutually exclusive between themselves, but will also depend, for requirement purposes, on which of the last two second rank projects you decided to pick. For example, Adeptus Arbites, an amazing project as I'll soon explain, can only be picked if you completed Shield of the Emperor, which is a second tier project. If you do Filth of the Expanse, while it does let you qualify for a third rank project, it won't for Adeptus Arbites, only for guilds or the Season of Wars. Anyways, don't worry because I will provide you with the best options. And as far as rank 4, it doesn't matter, you can always complete them all, so long as you have the necessary requirements, of course. Besides colony projects, you also have some colony events. Very important because that is where some of the best rewards for colony management are. Whenever you complete any of the mutually exclusive projects at rank 1, also the second rank as far as the two last ones, one of rank 3, also rank 5, and the very last one for rank 4, so for example Crucible here, or Bastion for Dargonus, once you finish that project, you'll also immediately get a colony event. Once you get one of these colony events, it is very important that you always pick the option that's about asking your advisors for their opinion first, because this will actually enhance the rewards you get. And of course, you want the best ones. Thankfully, after that, you can always, well, preview what the rewards for each option will be, by just right-clicking on the little icon at the start of each option. And as far as completing projects, it's just a matter of passing time. Good because you can always skip time on demand by just traveling through world map areas. Great for when you want to rush as many colony management projects as possible to get the best rewards without having to level up or complete multiple areas. Just keep traveling through the world map. Besides that, as you might have noticed, some projects also have requirements, usually in the many resources you can get by either other events and most importantly harvesting planetary resources by spending 1 extraction. Usually for most of the resources, focus on the planets that have 5+. For example, Plasteel, it is very easy to find, quite abundant even, so don't bother with ones that only have, let's say, 2 or 3. It's just a waste of extractions, although you can get more than enough later in the game. The only exceptions are Adamantine, also Xenotech, because they tend to be found only in 1 or 2 amounts for each planet. Anyways, some colony projects also have faction reputation as requirement, even colony stat requirements, so let's cover that now. Honestly, you don't really need to obsess over your colony characteristics, but you have efficiency, complacency, and security. They do have minor gameplay benefits, for example, efficiency increases the amount of resources produced by the colony, and you can see them all here from projects and so on. Meanwhile, complacency will increase the profit factor produced by the colony, but decrease the speed of project completion, which also doesn't matter that much. And as far as security is mostly so the colony will be able to manage on its own, that is, you won't get some annoying events where you have to directly head to the colony and engage in, let's say, ship combat to protect it, or some little annoying events, because once again you have to directly move there, as opposed to having the ability to solve the events from anywhere on the world map. Once again, the stats are mostly so you can meet prerequisites for certain projects, and well, as far as the order I will provide you for the best ones, you'll always have it all, besides one exception that I'll soon cover anyways. Last but not least, some colony projects actually provide you with replenishable rewards. After enough time has passed, you will constantly keep on getting more and more of the rewards, because they will replenish. So for example, for the Chem Princess project, your character will get more and more Tears of Repentance grenades, for 5 grenades, again and again and again. Which of course can be quite efficient, because even if you don't plan on directly using the items like the grenades here, remember you can always convert them into cargo instead, which is useful for faction reputation. Besides replenishable items and also faction reputation, some colony projects can actually provide extra stats to all colonies. This will always be marked by this little green icon here, great for meeting certain prerequisites later on. And well, now that we know the basics of colony management, let's get into the best projects for each colony, and the best rewards of course, because they are directly tied to that, starting with JANUS. For the first rank project, they're all mutually exclusive, once again. You can go with either Chem Princess or Sophocracy, because they are the projects that will provide you with replenishable rewards. Usually much better than single-use rewards, unless the item is very good, but in the case of the Starblight rifle, it's not. So I wouldn't bother picking it at all. Chem Princess will provide you with the Tears of Repentance grenades, which are pretty good for debuffing the enemies, while Sophocracy provides you with a consumable that will buff your allies instead, although the benefits aren't really that good. Anyways, I don't actually use both of these items, I just turn them into cargo, but I often go with Chem Princess, as the chemical reward you get here as a colony resource is very good for other projects. For the second tier projects, once again, the 2 ones at the bottom are what matters the most as far as proccing a new colony event for rewards. But anyways, the one you really wanna rush for is Capella Biologis, because the replenishable item you get is one of the best in the whole game. It can actually remove traumas from characters, all traumas even, for each use. Traumas of course are annoying because they are debuffs for most characters anyways, besides Blade Dancers. And well, you can only remove them by default by returning to the ship. However, some areas in this game, especially during Act 3, prevent you from returning to the ship until you fully complete them, which of course is where our special medikits come into play. By virtue of you constantly getting more and more and more as you pass time, you can finish the second chapter of the game with around 60, 70 even, perfect for Act 3. So once again, the benefit will be much better than the one you would get from Dark Sages, the other mutually exclusive project, because you know 5% extra damage to Xenos pales in comparison to having the best healing item in the game on demand. What about the other second rank projects? Well, most of them aren't really mutually exclusive, so you can just do them all when you have the resources. We do have one exception, however, which is the Science of Virtue project, because this will provide you with one of the ultimate Psyker boosting helmets in the game, the Eyes of Joyous, that I've already covered in my Psyker build so far. Anyways, it increases Psi rating by +1 for every rank in Dogmatic the character has. Most party members are Dogmatic, and as far as the main character, you can definitely always get around at least 2 ranks into it, and still max out faction reputation for another alignment you want. Now, for Janus' 3rd rank project, the best one is Monstrous Servants, because it provides you with a replenishable consumable, and a pretty good one at that, Scorcher. Scorcher will restore +1 AP to your character and immediately reset the cooldown of all attacks and attacking abilities. It does cost 1 AP to activate, which means you kind of automatically pay for the cost by virtue of just using it. But later, some accessories in the game do let you activate consumables for free, so 0 AP, which means +1 net AP from this. The debuff of being staggered doesn't matter because ideally you would just kill the enemy before that. For the 4th rank projects, it doesn't matter because once again, you can always pick the last one, which is what will advance you to the 5th tier projects. There's no mutually exclusive projects here. And as far as the 5th tier JANUS project, honestly, either Xeno Vivisectory or Pleasure World. Xeno Vivisectory will increase the dodge of all party members against Xenos, which can be nice because, you know, the toughest enemies in this game are actually Xenos instead of demons. You fight a lot more Xenos. Or Pleasure World, which provides you with the Watcher from Above sword. A decent enough weapon by virtue of high bonuses to parry and dodge, while also debuffing the enemy's own scores. Now, this is important, but once you finish one of the 2nd tier projects for JANUS, I believe, you will get a colony event, where you can find the highly OP Spirit Drape Talisman. Always be sure to pick this because it is godly. I've already covered it in my Psyker builds, but it lets all of your non-offensive Psyker powers cost -1 AP during the first turn of combat, which means both buffing and debuffing spells, and can work multiple times in the same turn so long as it's extra turns, so during the overall first whole round of battle. It's a must-have, as simple as that if you want to use Psykers. But of course, also missable because if you pick something else, I'm afraid you'll lose it. Besides that, another very good JANUS colony event reward is the Audacity of JANUS torpedo launchers. As I'll explain in my updated ship combat guide, these torpedoes are unique in that they can be fired on every single turn, that is, they do not have a cooldown at all. And honestly, blowing enemy ships with torpedoes is the best way of damage you'll have. So it's definitely something to keep in mind once doing JANUS colony events. Now let us cover the best colony projects and rewards for the DARGONUS colony. This is the only colony where I say you kinda have to pay attention to your colony stats and increase them in a proper order, as I'll soon explain. But anyways, for the 1st tier project, Extensions for the Nobility is a very good option because it's a nice passive for the main character, as you get a +5 bonus to all of your skills. And some skill checks, although a rather minor amount of them, can only be completed by the main character. On the other hand, Emporium is also very attractive. First, it offers way more rewards, especially mechanisms, which are kinda rare outside of the KIAVA Gamma colony. You can't really get them from planets as harvestable resources. And don't forget, the best or one of the best projects in the game, the Capella Biologist, for JANUS requires you to have one mechanism. While it won't increase the skills of the main character, it will reduce root cost. When creating a direct path to another system, it will only cost 2 Navigator Insight points instead of 3. By virtue of increasing complacency, Extensions for the Nobility might be your preferred pick, because you can always get mechanisms elsewhere. Complacency, however, is very important for DARGONUS because the main 4th tier project you require in order to access the level 5 ones, which is Bastion, requires you to have 7 or higher in all the main 3 colony stats for DARGONUS. And complacency is kind of a pain to increase otherwise for this colony because one of the earlier 2nd tier projects, Decree on Diligence, actually reduces your complacency, but when you pick it the first time, you wouldn't really know that it would actually potentially block you from picking the ultimate projects. Which means you can kind of soft lock you out of the last DARGONUS projects. In my case, thankfully, I was able to salvage my DARGONUS colony by picking the Charter of Minimal Rights project that increased my complacency to enough amounts. As far as the reduction to efficiency and security, they would already be at 10 at this point, so everything would be 7, enough to qualify you for Bastion, and then one of the 5th tier projects as they all require. Bastion, of course. Thing is, Charter of Minimal Rights requires you to be Iconoclast. I don't really know if there's one for each alignment, but my character was Iconoclast, so I could pick this just fine. Extensions is the safer option, and as far as the 2nd ranked projects, do not pick Decree on Diligence. The rewards are kinda minimal anyways, But just to be safe and not soft lock you out of Bastion, don't go with it. Anyways, we have another very important second tier colony project for Dargonus, which is Shield of the Emperor. Shield of the Emperor is amazing because it doesn't just provide you with the escort ship, which, as I'll explain in my updated ship combat guide, is an amazing asset for ship battles, but it also grants you loads of extra Imperial Navy reputation. Also great because it's how you can buy and upgrade your ship without having to do any ship battles, because by default, Imperial Navy reputation only comes after you defeat enemy ships. And while you could potentially also pick Filth of the Expanse, which does provide you with the escort ship, the same benefit, this one doesn't increase your Navy reputation. Plus, Shield of the Emperor is directly necessary so we can qualify for our best 3rd rank Dargonus project, Adeptus Arbites, because this one once again will also increase Navy reputation, so by just picking these projects you can already start the 2nd chapter with around 10,000 ship reputation for nice ship upgrades, even before doing a single ship battle. Amazing on Unfair and the new permadeath mode, of course. And as if that just wasn't enough, you still get an amazing item as a reward, the Caligay of Saint Keith, one of the best boots in the game. That restores all of your HP when performing heroic actions or desperate measures, and even lets your character get +2 extra action points, great for more attack spammage. Which is why, as you might have noticed, most of my damage focus builds use this eventually. Once again, for the 4th tier projects you can pick whatever, but Bastion does require high enough stats in all of them. And as far as the 5th tier project, Librarium is the best of them all. The item it provides you, the Echo of Victory, is kinda subpar, but it's mostly here because it provides you with an enormous amount of Casbalica Mission faction reputation. By itself is around, what, 1/3 of the total reputation you need? And the more reputation you have for factions, the bigger the chances you'll get to maximize them all in just a single run, for all of the best items in the game, of course. Now, before going to another colony, one of the best permanent passives in the game, called Witch Collector, does come from one of the Dargonus colony events. I believe it's after you finish one of the 2nd tier projects, which of course is going to be Shield of the Emperor for us. Witch Collector will increase your party's momentum whenever any ally uses a Psyker or Navigator power, which of course is quite busted considering just Cassia alone can spam multiple Navigator powers on every turn, and you also have Psyker allies for that. And the more momentum, the better for heroic action spammage as early as possible, so right at the start of battle, before enemies ever get to act. Now let us cover the best colony projects and rewards for the FOULSTONE colony. This is actually the only missable colony, I believe, so it's optional in a way, but has a lot of powerful benefits. For the 1st tier project, my preferred pick is Celestial Protector. The Shield of Faith passive is pretty good because it increases one of the sectors of your ship's shields. And to be fair, ship combat in this game is actually a lot harder than actual normal gameplay combat, so it helps you have as many benefits as possible for Unfair, where you take higher damage during ship combat. After that, my preferred picks for the mutually exclusive projects are first Hallowed Railway, mostly because I fancy Explorator's faction increase as they have a lot of great items. But you might also prefer Cemetery of the Faithful if you prefer Drusian faction reputation increases, plus complacency bonuses for all colonies. The Blessing of the Fallen passive, however, is kind of a poor benefit for ship combat. Lastly, you can pick between Bonfires of Righteousness or Good Tidings. Honestly, I think Bonfires is, let's say, a better option mechanically, if only because it qualifies you for the Crusade 3rd rank project, which grants first a +10 bonus to all stats of your main character during warp encounter battles. It's just that warp encounter battles, well, they only happen when traveling with your ship, so aren't exactly that common. But besides that, +3 security to all colonies is great, and even +20% damage against demons. The reason I don't pick Bonfires and Crusade is that Bonfires has kind of an annoying requirement, colony stat-wise, that my character usually can't complete in the 2nd chapter still, because the FOULSTONE colony event rewards that you get from completing these projects are so good that I want to rush them as early as possible, and Good Tidings is just much easier to complete. as soon as possible, of course. Plus, the Frequency of Faith benefit is good enough, as it increases the critical hit chance of almost all allies. Then you would go for Shrine, also pretty easy to complete, for loads of benefits, and the Hammer of Epiphany weapon, which is decent enough. Once again, it's only so you can trigger the colony events you get from completing the last, second, and one of the third tier projects, especially before unlocking KIAVA Gamma or VHEABOS 6. For Unfair mode, it does matter because, once again, the sooner you are getting rewards from colony events, the more powerful you get the earlier. But like I said, you can go with Bonfire and Crusader if you're fine with delaying it for much later. I'm not. Anyways, for the 5th rank project, Sacred Comet is my preferred pick, as it provides you with the Blessing of Saint Cognatius feature I just mentioned recently in my updated Idira build. It provides a huge +5 bonus to all stats and all skills of all party members besides poor Xenos. Of course, it's an amazing extra benefit to have. Now, the FOULSTONE colony does have very powerful rewards once you finish the 1st and the 2nd tier projects, which is why I said I want to rush it as early as possible. For the 1st tier project, you can get the Malpian Shroud, one of the ultimate melee damage boosting cloaks in the whole game. It really is that good. First, whenever you attack the enemy, you get temporary HP, and second, enormous bonuses to your melee attack damage as a flat source of damage based on how much temporary HP you have remaining, which is very easy to increase on, for example, Abelard as a Vanguard archetype tank. Then for the 2nd tier project, as far as the last 2 ones at the bottom, as always, you can go for Influential Servant, so that at the start of each battle, your party will get a very nice +10 bonus to momentum. Once again, the more momentum, the more heroic action spammage, as early as possible. Now let's cover the best projects and rewards for the KIAVA Gamma colony. For the 1st tier project, I went with Calculating Holiness, but nowadays I'd much rather pick Restoration. While the Cursed Boots reward is kinda poor, it can increase warp damage, but only if you are heretical, and Cassia, the main party member with warp damage, is not. But anyways, the best part is that this will provide you with 2 mechanisms, a very rare type of resource that mostly only comes from KIAVA Gamma. Meanwhile, Calculating Holiness only provides you with 1 mechanism instead. For the 2nd tier project, my preferred pick is Flawless Servitors. The Battle Servitors feature is kinda poor. It only, well, grants you some Servitor allies during ship encounters, and by that I only mean the actual, random ship events when traveling through the map where you can get ambushed by enemies. It's not during actual ship battle. It's mostly here to qualify you for the best rank 3 project, Armored Rage. This can provide you with the Titan Force Lance ship weapon, which is actually one of the best weapons you can have for the 2nd chapter. And as always, you have way less bonuses to ship combat than normal gameplay, so it helps to, well, stack your ship combat upgrades as high as possible and as soon as possible. This will help a lot with that. Then for the best 5th tier project, you actually have 2 options. If you're all about Psychers, the Ethereal Visor can be a very good helmet. It increases Psi rating by +1 and has a very nice secondary property of highly increasing Psyker damage by a huge percentage amount. That will be way higher in battle than this, around 130, 20, even 160% plus, because it's based on your willpower, which is easily buffable at this point. Of course, if you already have the Eyes of Joyous and you are dogmatic, you might not really care for this, cause Eyes of Joyous is just better. But on the other hand, if you aren't dogmatic aligned, this can make for a very nice secondary option. And of course, if you have multiple Psychers, you won't have multiple Eyes of Joyous, so you equip one with it and the other with the Ethereal Visor. The thing is, the Sky Barrier Ultimate KIAVA Gamma project is also quite powerful. It actually has multiple stacked benefits, but the most important benefit is the huge Faction Reputation Increase bonus to the Explorators faction, for the amazing sum of extra 20,000 whole points. Besides that, you also get a nice ship weapon and even a great permanent passive for extra minimum damage to all allies' ranged attacks. So in a way, you might prefer to just go with Sky Barrier instead of Warp Revelations. Now we are finally at the last colony, VHEABOS 6, so let's cover the best projects and rewards. For the 1st tier project, I really like Punishment of the Outsiders, because it provides you with plus 10 extra critical damage for all allies, and it's very easy to increase critical chance to the max in this game. By that I mean 100%. For the second tier projects, as far as the most important one, I like ergonomics. It's not that the benefit's that good, I mean plus 4% hit chance to all allies is nice, and also plus 5 commerce. It's just that the other one, and Viral Dome, is kinda poor. It's just a plus 5 carouse and less toxic damage suffered by allies, but by a very minor amount. While these are the projects you need to qualify for rank 3 and also the colony event for second tier projects, you have another very useful one here, which is Extraction Metallica. Not just for the huge boost to Explorator's faction, but also more Extractiums for more planetary resources on demand. And it is mutually exclusive with Lair of the Void and Holy Servitude. Then for the best third rank project, my preferred pick is Test of Wills. The Unerring Shots passive is really good because it highly increases the damage of your torpedoes, and as you're about to see in my updated ship combat guide, torpedoes are the easiest way of blowing enemy ships up. Then for the ultimate 5th tier project, definitely Palaces for the Outcasts. For the huge permanent passive, which means plus 10 to all mental stats of your main character, intelligence, fellowship, and willpower. And well, this was pretty much it for our updated colony management guide. If you found it useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and see you next time, friends, with more builds and of course our updated ship combat guide for unfair mode.